Maine. I live in Jonesport, Maine, which is right on the ocean. That is Indian River Bay at low tide. It's near the Bay of Fundy. So the difference between low and high tide is 17 feet, which is about 5 meters. So we talk about global warming producing a large surge of water in New York and so forth. If it gets to be 5 meters, civilization pretty much collapses. Well, it does that twice a day at my house, but we're used to it. We expect it, so it's all fine. I'll give you a little background about myself, and then I'll show you some pictures. I started working in the field of photovoltaics professionally in 1960 when I went to graduate school to get a PhD in physical chemistry. And what I did there was work on cuprous oxide, that's copper 1 oxide, thin film photovoltaic cells that had a sub-nano layer of copper on them. It's called a Schottky barrier junction. And I was building that by bombarding the single crystals of cuprous oxide with protons. That was my research project. I was making rather nice solar cells as a result of that. Now, of course, it's quite fashionable to talk about the thin film and nano materials and so forth, but when I was doing it, wasn't much interest. I've written 3 books, actually. This is one of the 3. This is the first one I wrote on solar energy, anyway, 3. This is Practical Photovoltaics. This is the revised 3rd edition of the book. And I have it, it's $18.95. I have 1 copy left here. I have more where I'm staying. And this is the other book I wrote more recently, totally in Spanish, which is more on solar in general. So I'll just give you a little background. And now I'm going to fire up the laptop and show you some PowerPoint pictures. And then, oh, here we are. That is a picture taken from the front deck of my house at almost high tide, so you can see the difference. I live right on the Atlantic Ocean. I have 5.5 acres of oceanfront property, which should be worth a whole lot of money, but for 2 things. One, it's in Jonesport, Maine, which is probably the cheapest place in the United States to get oceanfront. And second, there were no power lines available, which of course was no problem to me. And that's in March. You can see there's snow there. This is my house. I built it myself in 1988, and I mean I was all by myself when I was building most of it, and I had no electric power when I did most of it, so I cut all the wood with a handsaw and so forth. It's off the grid. I haven't paid a utility bill in 21 years. No electric bill. It has no furnace and no thermostat. And so I have no heating bill for 21 years. I do use a wood stove as a backup, and I use some firewood. I'll show you a picture of the kitchen in a moment. Now there's several points I want to make about these. First of all, the heating is done by passive solar architecture. This is an old technique that people have been doing for 2,500 years at least that we know about. The Greeks started, in fact, all civilizations do this sooner or later, but the Greeks actually wrote about it. Aristotle gives you the proper instructions for building a solar home. And the Greeks did it after they clear-cut Greece, basically. Greece used to be heavily forested. And now, of course, it's all these barren hillsides and things. And once you clear cut like that, trees never come back. And the idea is in the winter time, the sun is low in the sky. It rises in the east and in the southeast rather than due east, travels across the sky, relatively low angle. Here, you're 42 degrees north latitude, so it has a path which slopes 42 degrees from the vertical. So it's a little over half, it's not quite halfway down from the vertical. And it sets in the southwest, so the sun is pretty much in the south for the whole day in the dead of winter. The sun pours in through the windows and that heats the house. In the summer, the sun starts way over in the northeast and it travels on a much higher path across the sky and sets way over in the northwest. And it is not quite, it isn't directly overhead, it's close to it. I mean, it's like 20 some degrees from being directly overhead. And the overhangs keep the sun from coming in so that you keep the house cool in the summer by not letting the sun come in. And of course I have a very large air conditioner. It's called the Atlantic Ocean in front of my house. So every afternoon I get the sea breeze blowing, which cools the house right down when it's in danger of getting over 80. I want to mention here, I hadn't mentioned this before, you need to do things for plantings and so forth to keep the late afternoon sun out. I have a batch of balsam firs that are growing up on the northwest side of my house, which do two things. In the summer, they block the sun from the west wall because it'll bake that wall for hours until the sun sets, like 9:30 at night. And in the winter, they deflect the cold northwest winds that blow, and so it keeps the house, you create a little microclimate there. So when you design a house, the landscaping is part of the design in passive solar. Now that's one thing, you bring the sun in. Now once you bring it in when you want it, you have to keep it in the house. You have to keep the heat in the house. Once the photons come in, they convert themselves into heat, and it heats the house up, heats all the air up. And so you need to have lots of insulation. And you can't have too much insulation. I have R40 walls and R60 ceiling, R60 roof. The roof is all foam actually with no nails and it's all glued together. And how many people here have seen the movie The Perfect Storm? Some of you have. It hit my house. We don't know what the wind was, velocity was when it came, because the wind gauge at the Coast Guard station down by the Reach in Jonesport disappeared when it was reading 126 miles an hour. So, and I lost a few shingles, that was it. I built that house with a great deal of cross bracing and everything for this kind of thing, so that the glued together roof does hold up pretty well. The third step is you have to store the heat for nighttime use. If you don't do that, your house will overheat by the afternoon. Upstairs in the bedrooms, in houses that don't have enough storage, you end up in the dead of winter having to open windows and dump heat, which isn't a real onerous chore, but then come night, the house gets cold.